IVM.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners. Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you are all well and keeping safe. On the episode today, we have a returning guest, Ajay Kamalakaran, avid traveler and a writer who is taking us to God's own country. Let's hop on to the episode and find out more.
We know you love fast food,
fast fashion,
faster payment,
lightning fast internet speed.
Then why not fast information?
On Think Fast, where we discuss the latest developments in the world of technology, business, marketing, pop culture.
With a side of sarcasm and my dad jokes, or just mine.
Not mine, Varun. My jokes are funny. So join me, guys, the funnier one, Suchita Salvan, co-founder of LBB.
And me, Varun Dugirala, the co-founder of The Glitch, as we think fast only on the IVM network.
Fresh episodes out every Wednesday.
On the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome back, I should say, Ajay Kamalakaran, writer and traveler to the Musafir Stories. Hey Ajay, welcome back. It's so nice to have you again, almost after 3 years.
Thank you. It's great to be back on your show.
Thank you, Ajay. It's always a pleasure, especially welcoming back guests with whom we have had great conversations. And to listeners who are listening to Ajay for the first time, let me remind you, we also did an episode on the Sakhalin Islands in Russia. It was one of the exceptions on the Musafir Stories as well, because we usually tend to stick to episodes within India, but Sakhalin and maybe another one was the only exception, and we were lucky to have Ajay actually speak about his experiences in Russia and even a book based on his experiences there. Ajay, I've given a short and sweet intro about you, but why don't you speak a little bit more about yourself and also where you're taking us to today?
Okay, so thank you for that lovely intro, first of all. And I'm a writer based in Bombay. I still like to call my hometown that, but my roots can be traced back to Kerala, and it's a place that I'm slowly trying to understand better. Growing up as a Malayali, I grew up speaking both English and Malayalam because I grew up in the United States, but I don't think I understand Kerala as well as I should. So I have a column on Malayalam Manorama's English language website where I write about Kerala's connections with the rest of the world. And I think for me to write with authority, I really need to spend more time in Kerala. So I'm going to take you guys today on a virtual journey to Kozhikode, or Calicut, as most people like to call it in English. And it is really what I would classify as the jewel of the Malabar region, which is northern Kerala.
Wonderful. Really, really looking forward to that. And like you said, the jewel of Malabar, and also the city of spices, as Calicut is known. I won't try attempting, or maybe I'll attempt to Kozhikode. Is that the right pronunciation?
Well, in Malayalam we use the y, so it's Kozhikode. Yeah. So there's one thing that people who aren't familiar with Malayalam have. When our friends from the north come, they say Kozhikode, Kozhikode. Yeah. So it's a bit difficult. So we'll stick to Calicut.
We'll stick to Calicut, you're right. Cool, wonderful. And tell us a little bit more in terms of, for people who are listening to this for the first time or hearing about Calicut for the first time, geographically, where it is located, and what's a good way to get there?
Okay, it's located in the northern part of Kerala. If you live in the western coast of India, the best thing to do is just to take a train, because I took a train from Kurla, Tilaknagar terminus at 8:40 in the evening and got there at 1:20 in the afternoon. And it's one of the most beautiful train rides you can ever take in India, because you cross Goa, Karnataka, and right into northern Kerala. And it's really quick. So, of course, there's an international airport in Calicut, so you can fly there as well. It's connected by flights from different parts of India.
Okay, wonderful. And just in terms of, I know Kerala can get a bit hot during certain times of the year. When do you suggest would be a good time to travel?
Calicut is really blessed with very good climate. If it crosses a particular heat threshold, it starts raining. So I was actually there in April and May when it's supposed to be at its hottest. But I really didn't suffer because of the weather. When parts of India had 47, 49-degree weather, it was raining and it was around 25, 26. So it was all right. But if you really want the most pleasant weather, I would suggest visiting after October. And if you're there from November till March, you'll get much better weather at that time. So, but like I said, throughout the year, because of one, because of the sea breeze, two, because of the rains that keep coming there, you won't really suffer too much on account of the weather. Although locals love to complain about the weather all the time.
I think all of us love to do that, right? Whenever we are in our own cities, we always try to find something or the other to complain about. But like we touched upon earlier on as well, it's the jewel of Malabar, right? And historically as well has been a very, very significant place within the history of the subcontinent. Would you like to touch upon some of the important periods from a historical perspective too, Ajay?
Sure. Now, there are a lot of people who claim that Calicut was connected with King Solomon, and there's really no historical evidence for that. What we do know is that the city, as it exists today, probably came up around the middle of the 12th century. And around the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, it was really at its peak as one of the most important trading hubs in all of Asia. It was really one of the great meeting points of East and West because you had ships coming from Alexandria, you had merchants coming from Venice, Constantinople, and then from the other side, from Java and from China. So this was some sort of a midpoint where people would meet and trade would take place. And a lot of traders, merchants, travelers, they started living there. They had an impact on the architecture, on the culture, on the cuisine of the place, and really made it an extremely important international city.
Yeah, definitely. And also, just in terms of the import, I guess during the time of the Zamorins, as we call them, or Samoothris.
Samoothris, very good. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, that's local name, right?
Right.
I think, true to your point, really the hub of all sorts of trade and commerce with people from all sides of the world, right from Arabs to travelers and traders from the East visiting here. And popular travelers, even like Ibn Battuta, right, was one of the people who visited this port town. Even after that period, right, when we started to see the colonial powers coming here and ruling, making colonies, right from the French to the British to the Dutch, like everyone has connections to the place, right? So that way, culturally as well, it's like a melting pot now, as we'll find out more and more during the course of the conversation.
Absolutely. And let's not forget our good friends, the Portuguese, who really had the biggest impact on how colonialism took shape in the Indian subcontinent.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that. Yeah, exactly, right. Mr. Vasco da Gama made first contact with India or with the subcontinent in Calicut. That's where he landed first. So
that's
very,
right.
Very significant.
That it's a place called Kapat Beach, which is out of the city, but it's worth going there because the beach itself is extremely beautiful. And if you go there on a weekday, you'll be the only traveler. You can stand there, look at the sea, and imagine Vasco coming. And there's a plaque there dedicated to his arrival, although it's not really something that is super posh and maintained so well because, well, he's not exactly a hero for the Malayalis.
Sure. So yeah, a lot of historically significant places, events, and people associated to Calicut as well. We'll talk more about that. Now, in terms of your visit and your stay, obviously this wasn't like a short weekend type of a trip, right? So tell us a little bit more about that, how you spent your time there, and talk us through your experience spending time in Calicut.
Sure. I mean, I'm really trying to rediscover the joy of travel. I know it sounds very cliche, but for me, I wanted to really indulge in slow travel to completely immerse myself in the pluralistic culture of that region. So I spent a month there. I was there during the holy month of Ramzan, and Calicut has, I think, about a 38% Muslim population.
Right.
And so it was interesting for me to go for different iftar parties. But the most interesting thing is I got there just after the Kerala New Year holiday of Vishu. And my first evening there, I started hearing fireworks, and I was like, okay, Vishu's over, what's going on? Then I found out that in a nearby locality, there was a celebration which is pretty much unique to Kerala. So apparently it was a three-way celebration because it was Easter Sunday plus Vishu plus iftar. So everybody was celebrating together. And of course, they kept the fireworks late at night. Thank you, everyone. But the idea was all kinds of food was there. There was a Vishu Sadhya, there were Ramzan treats and Easter treats. So people were just having fun together. And that's what I really like about Kerala. It's that this unity that exists, especially among the educated classes. And of course, people have accused Malayalis of being very united and excluding everybody else. And that's something we need to take very seriously and consider, and not be that way if we indeed are like that.
Yeah, but I think that's a good start off to your stay there as well, right? And how long of a trip was this, Ajay?
Right, it was for a month, and I used Calicut as a base to explore some of the other parts of this region that is called Malabar, and that comprises of the northern parts of Kerala. Going historically, Malabar was a part of the Madras Presidency, and it was a place where I would say it extends. There's the southern Malabar, which includes places like Ponnani by the Arabian Sea, and you go up north and towards the border with Karnataka, what is now the modern state of Karnataka. So I use Calicut as a base to just explore small towns, villages, interact with people. And one experience that I unfortunately missed was the Santosh Trophy football tournament was going on in nearby Malappuram, and Kerala won. And from the reports that I got, the atmosphere was out of this world. So unfortunately, I missed that, but I did get a chance to go and interact with people from across the region. And their hospitality is, it has to be experienced to be believed.
And usually, how was a day, given that, especially if it's, like I was saying, if it was a short weekend trip, it would have been packed. But how did you spend your time, given that you had enough amount of time to actually take it slow, take it easy, and explore the place, right? Also, it's I know it's classified as a tier 2 city. So do you actually get a sense of that in the sense of it being a little more laid back compared to some of the bigger cities, say like a Trivandrum or a Kochi?
Oh, it's completely laid back. That's the best part about the city. But also at the same time, it has such an international outlook. So you will see restaurants there's a restaurant which serves you very good Mexican food. So it's you have Mexican, Lebanese, all types of different Arab cuisines. You see signs like authentic Yemeni food. And of course, the cuisine of the Malabar region itself is really sumptuous. And you have a very interesting set of young people there with a really global outlook. People who've had exposures to different parts of the world and now are living there in their hometown and, bringing that international culture and vibe to the city. And it's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, there's Kerala is beautiful, right? There's no two ways about that. But added to that, this whole vibe of like really taking it slow, laid back, not too crowded, etc. Like all of those things will just enhance the whole experience of living there. And what are some of the experiences you would say that stood out for you while you were there, be it in terms of places or people interactions or the culture of Calicut? Would you like to share maybe a few of those, Ajay?
Sure. I mean, I'd actually visited Calicut for the first time in the first week of March. It was a very brief trip. And I had a brief amount of time at this place called Kutichara, which is a traditional Muslim area in the heart of Calicut. Now, I liked that area so much, so when I was back for Ramzan, I actually went there, and I went to my favorite mosque in India. It's called the Mishkal Mosque, and it's a large structure which combines Kerala elements with Chinese and Islamic elements. So you see limestones, there's a bit of green there, but it's hard to tell that it actually just looks like an old Kerala palace, even more than a Hindu temple. So I was there around the time that the fast was about to be broken for the Maghrib prayers, and I'm standing there and just admiring the structure. And an elderly gentleman in his mid-70s comes up to me and says, "It's time to break the fast. Come on inside." I said, "Uncle, I'm not fasting." He said, "It doesn't matter. Come and break the fast with us anyway." And I went inside that mosque, sat there, had some fruits, and I observed the interiors of the place, which had brass lamps, the timber, the smell of the timber. It smelled exactly like how any Hindu temple in Kerala smells like, and the whole atmosphere. I was blown away with how kind this gentleman was to invite me, and then people started talking to me, and once their fast was broken after the prayers, they asked me where I'm from, and this is an experience that many people from the Malayali diaspora experience in Kerala, where they ask you where you're from, you mention, in my case, Bombay, then the question is, how come you speak such good Malayalam? And then you say, okay, my grandparents were from Kerala. Then they say, which part? And then when I say Palakkad, they say, oh, okay, you're from Palakkad. So they're okay. Next time somebody asks me where I'm from, I'll say Palakkad. When I said that, people were like, oh, but then why do you speak Malayalam with such an accent? So you never win.
Yeah, really some interesting conversations. And also this interesting thing I find about both mosques and temples in Kerala, right? They have this very unique architecture, and like you say, it's also very different to, you could say, the rest of India too.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, especially the older ones. As for the temples, now local historians have been telling me that a lot of these, the kind of architecture, it's called pagoda architecture, which is a Portuguese perversion of Bhagavati, the word pagoda. And you see similar architecture in Nepal, in China, Japan, Korea, as you do in Kerala and some parts of Karnataka. Now the thing is, where did it come from? Who influenced whom? These are issues that are contentious. Some people say that this architecture was brought down to Kerala by the Nevar people from Nepal. Others say the Chinese brought it. So there's always going to be an argument. But I think if we can focus on the commonalities and what unites us, I think it's a beautiful thing, and to appreciate. There's a temple in a place called Kannur, which looks like the Temple of Heaven in Beijing. The resemblance is really uncanny. So it's wonderful to appreciate both these places and to think that we have in common a lot more that unites us than divides us.
Yeah, 100%. And also this Mishkal mosque that you're referring to, right? Seems to be a pretty old mosque as well.
14th century.
Yeah.
It was it was basically built by a Yemeni merchant, a ship owner who was really fabulously wealthy. And unfortunately, it was attacked by the Portuguese, but there was a united force comprising of Malayali Nayars and Muslims who fought together to save that place. And it was damaged by artillery shelling by the Portuguese. But, well, what happened later on was the Portuguese fort, which no longer exists near the Chaliam River, was destroyed. And they took pieces of that to help just rebuild this mosque. So it's the thing is, it's so unique because as Indians, it's a matter of great pride for us, because we can say, okay, look at this beautiful mosque, and there are a few others within the area of Kutichara which also look like palaces and in Kerala architectural style, and it's so unique for us. Now there are some beautiful mosques in different parts of India that are nice, but you can see a similarity with mosques in other parts of the world. But this is so unique. And I really believe more people should come and visit them. I also went to a place called Ponnani, which is where the famous Nila or Bharatapura, literally translates as Indian River, empties out in the Arabian Sea. So there you have a mosque which has a few minarets, but the ones in Kutichara, like Mishkal, don't even have that. So it's indistinguishable from a Hindu temple. But at the end of the day, what has happened is, the Islam has been Indianized or Keralized in such a way, and that's how you see it there.
Yeah, definitely. Kerala does seem to have some interesting mosques as well. I think even we discussed this on one of the previous episodes. One of the oldest mosques, believed to be one of the oldest mosques in India, the Charaman, the Juma Masjid, right? Charaman.
Yeah, exactly.
I might be messing up the pronunciation, but that is also...
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing, right? Islam has been around. See, first of all, Arab traders started coming to Kerala well before the advent of Islam. So when they converted and they believed in this, they brought their beliefs across. Some people accepted it, but the point is, it's not a case of people coming and settling. It's some Arab traders intermarried and stuff, but a lot of people also found this idea, this religious belief interesting, so they embraced it. So there's no question of conquest or anything in Kerala. And this is something I really appreciate about Kerala, is that this Malayali identity seems to trump everything else, which is a really nice thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And certainly seems to be a very interesting place to visit to. The area is called Kutichira, you said?
Kutichara, yeah. It's called Kutichara, and it's fascinating. There's one of the centerpiece of Kutichara is one really big artificial pond. So you have these outside Hindu temples as well, including the famous Tali temple in Calicut, where you have this big pond. So you walk around there. In fact, if you walk around before sunset, you see people sitting and discussing, and you go inside the lanes of Kutichara. It almost, you feel like, okay, am I in Zanzibar? Am I in some other exotic place? It has that same feel. And there are a lot of small, restaurants there which serve you, ghee rice. And it's really, really tasty. And different biryanis, and you have a whole wide range of what's a whole genre in its own, Mapla cuisine, as it's called.
I think the Maplas are basically the Muslims of the region, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's the term that is used, but if you go deeper into that word, Mapla, it includes more people, like certain books have explained. But yes, the Malabari Muslim cuisine is absolutely delicious. But for those of our listeners who are vegetarians, fear not. Calicut has some of the most delectable vegetarian cuisine. I mean, you'll get great sadhyas. You have very famous restaurants where you get some wonderful, stereotypical South Indian cuisine, idlis and dosas and stuff. But, if you really want to have authentic Kerala food, string hoppers, nool puttu as we call them, appam, there's a wide variety of food for vegetarians, for vegans. So fear not. There's a lot of good things you can eat if you have any sort of dietary restrictions. When it comes to meat and fish. Of course, when it comes to healthy food, sorry, Kerala, you guys have to do better. And it's amazing because people are generally naturally athletic, but with wealth, you see so many fancy cars and people driving even very short distances, and the paunches are starting to become really visible, and Kerala is really dealing with the other side of having such good food, and it's quite cheap, is something that really threatens the public health of the state, that is the obesity.
Yeah, there's definitely a real concern there, but yeah, who could complain, right? There's so much in terms of even diversity, like you're saying, from vegetarian to non-vegetarian to Arab cuisine to whatnot, like even Mexican.
It is the Arab food capital of India, because a person like me, I'm not very familiar with West Asia, and I've not traveled extensively there. So when I went to try out some Arab food in Calicut, I noticed things like al-faham, shawaya. These are things, al-mandi. These are things I had no idea what they were. But they definitely did not disappoint me. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And this is something that young people really like to enjoy on a Friday night. But also, one thing I've noticed is people also crave traditional food. So there's this one very modest eatery called Amma's Hotel. It was started by a lady more than 30 years ago. And there's always a huge queue where you get served a traditional sadhya on a banana leaf, but with a twist. You get really good fish curry, and apparently and fried fish, and they will never reveal their recipe, but apparently it's the best you can get in Calicut. And the queues are serpentine. You go in, it's share tables because it's, you just sit, they lay out the banana leaf, and then comes the food. And it's absolutely, I can't think of a better place to have lunch than Amma's Hotel. And it's a very modest place, but you can see there's a parking area, maybe a 3-minute walk away, and you'll see BMWs there, and you'll see the most fancy cars. And but it's, the food is that good. It brings people from every section of society there, and they just sit next to each other and enjoy the food. And every culture that has come to Kerala has contributed to the cuisine.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start off the conversation. And any other places or experiences you'd like to call out besides Kottichira that we just spoke about, Ajay?
Yes, the Tali temple area. Now, this is a very famous Shiva temple, which also dates back to the same era, the 14th century. And it also has a beautiful pond. And the areas, the lanes around the Tali temple are really historic, and they take you back to another era. And the temple itself is really beautiful, but unfortunately in Kerala, the Hindu temples have certain restrictions on entry. So it's very, very unfortunate. But if you go to explore those lanes, they're really nice. And they're so well maintained. I mean, the cleanliness is to be seen, to be believed. And also there, you have the most famous shop selling Calicut's famous banana chips and halwas, right? So people go there.
Yeah, I think halwa is really popular from Calicut, because banana chips, definitely in other parts of Kerala as well, I've heard. But halwa seems to be pretty popular. Yeah, right?
But you ask any Malayali where the best banana chips come from, and they'll tell you they come from Calicut. So, as for halwa, yes, I mean, people who've tried different halwas say that the halwa you get in Calicut is closer to the Persian halwa. It's influenced by that, but it's something which has again been Indianized, and it's quite delicious. So that neighborhood around Tali is a place where you can spend a lot of time. You have a lot of traditional houses there as well, and just observing and walking around, you see another side of Calicut. And you walk further from there, you see the traditional markets, and Calicut's a major center for wholesale and distribution for different parts of Kerala. So it's a very interesting place to be. And it's an area that I love as much as I love Kottichira.
Yeah, I know, definitely. And like you mentioned, the only a couple of things to take note of is that, especially if you're a foreigner from outside of India, and entry is restricted to Hindus. And even, I think for Hindus, you'll have to go into the traditional, while entering, you have to go into the traditional dhoti. Yeah, the mundu, right? Yeah.
Mundu veshti, you wear that and go inside. And yeah, that's a case for all the temples in Kerala. So I know a lot of people who wear shorts underneath their mundu and wear a belt with their mundu because they're afraid it'll fall off. But wearing a mundu is an art form. Once you learn how to do it, I love wearing it. But unfortunately, I kind of thought that maybe I can just wear one and walk around the streets of Kozhikode, but then it would be like looking at a pink rabbit. People would be able to tell me from a mile apart, and I thought, okay, no, there's no need to do that. People wear trousers and jeans, and it's considered a very normal thing. So don't be an idiot, I told myself.
Yeah, definitely. Like you kind of mentioned this as well. One of the most popular temples in Kerala too, right? The Tali temple.
Yes.
So definitely make sure that you pay this a visit if you're in the vicinity. And also, a lot of these places are pretty accessible, right? You don't really have to travel, say, too far from the city center. Yeah.
No, you don't have to. And another thing is, Calicut is famous for its honest auto drivers. Okay, they don't rip you off. And I had a few interactions with them during my month. They said that we've started learning Hindi because a lot of laborers have come from different parts of India, and they find it difficult to learn our language. Although their children go to Malayalam medium schools and speak really well. So we decided, okay, why not just pick up a little bit here and there? So if you're, the point is, it won't be difficult, but even otherwise, they don't, they're quite honest, and it's easy to take autos around Calicut. And there's no problem. I stayed in a place called Chevayur, and which is about a few kilometers away from Calicut's center. But it's a hilly area where, I mean, the higher up the hill you go, the more you see the beautiful landscape of the Malabar region. Imagine coconut tree laced hills. This is one place where coconut trees actually grow on hills. I haven't seen this anywhere else, because wherever else you see hills, you see other kind of vegetation.
Sure.
So this experience to see those beautiful hills is really nice. And I was very fortunate to find a house that was designed by a genius of an architect who's in her co-designed by her. She's in her late 20s, and it's called Vettats. So it's a co-living space, and the owner Abhirami Murli has done everything to make it the ideal, writer's stop. I don't want to give too much of this away, because last thing I would want is, okay, writers making a beeline for that place and me not being able to stay there. But if you're a Malayali writer, Calicut is some sort of a pilgrimage spot. You go there, you feel inspired, and you write more. And it's a city that really honors its writers. There are roads that are named after writers such as Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, who was one of the greatest Malayalam writers of all time. And, a place that honors its writers is a place that has high culture.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's some good call-outs, and I think a lot of people will start envying you and your time you spent there now, especially given how you're describing not just the architecture, but even the surroundings too of the place. Yeah,
sure. Mm-hmm.
Writer's Retreat. So we touched upon also two, I guess, very different places in Kuttichira and Tali Temple. Any other places or experiences worth mentioning? Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, look, the thing is, of course, there's a coastline that stretches from north to south in Kerala. So Calicut has a nice beach where there's a very nice promenade that's been set up. So that's a great walking spot, and people converge there in the evenings, and it's a really, really nice promenade. So if you don't want to walk on the beach and get sand on your feet inside your shoes, you can walk on that promenade, and it's really nice. And if you're ready to travel a little bit out of town, you can go to Kapat Beach, the place where Vasco da Gama arrived in 1498. And that place, it's a really beautiful beach, and it's empty most of the time. I mean, what I would advise people who are going on short trips, plan your trips so that you are there on weekdays. No place gets crowded then, because people have to work. And you go to Kapat Beach where Vasco came, and you'll have it almost to yourself in the afternoon. And, you can just admire and appreciate the surroundings. So, yes, I would definitely recommend time spent by the seashore. And there are some beautiful restaurants which are close to the sea, a couple of rooftops in Calicut, and there's one place called the Beach Hotel, which opened they claim that they've been around since 1890, but it was actually the mansion of the governor of Malabar for some time. It's a heritage hotel, and they have a nice outdoor space where you can enjoy yourself. So these are experiences that I would recommend. Also, there's a very nice archaeological museum on one of the hills, and a museum dedicated to V.K. Krishna Menon, the famous
Sure.
statesman. But that area, that compound has a nice walking track with a beautiful garden and a butterfly park. But it's a great place to sit, to read, and to just look at, again, those hills. I mean, the one thing that stayed with me a few weeks separated from this trip are those coconut tree laced hills. I can't get over them. So this is another spot to observe those hills from. And also, if you want just genuine experiences, see, there's a walking street in the heart of the city, Sweetmeat Street, as it's called, and you can get halwas and other things there. And I had this wonderful experience of going to a single screen cinema hall there, the famous Radha Talkies. And I watched a Malayalam film there, and I didn't need subtitles, so I could enjoy it. But just the experience of sitting there on a balcony and observing, and in our country where multiplexes are coming up in every corner, we're losing that single screen cinema experience. And this is one thing you can do. And this theater is really popular, so I'm glad it's definitely going to survive. So I think that, besides that, around Calicut, there are many small lakes, and there's a biosphere area called Sarovaram. So, I mean, there's plenty to keep you occupied, just to walk around, to take great photographs, and just to observe. So you'll never run out of things to do in Calicut.
Yeah, you didn't run out of things to do even while you're there for a month, so nobody has to worry if they're doing like a shorter trip. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'd definitely like to highlight a couple of the places you mentioned too. SM Street, or the Sweetmeat Street as it's called, right? That one is also very, very popular, and it's no vehicular traffic, so that way you could walk about and enjoy your time there. And very popular for, again, the halwas primarily, and I believe that's how it got its name initially. But
yes, because of the texture of the halwas, right? So it was the texture is just like meat, so it became a sweetmeat.
Yeah, exactly. And this halwa, I don't know how many. At least we used to get this type of halwa back in Bangalore, but I don't know how popular this is in the other parts of the country. But it's basically made out of ghee and sugar, and then there's obviously flavors depending on what kind of halwa you get. There's different flavors, and you'll literally get tons of flavors, right from different kinds of fruits to spicy to chili halwa and everything. But it's very unique, right? I don't see this very common, say, the northern part of India.
No. The northern concept of halwa is completely different. In Kerala, that's called shira or kesari. So it's quite different. But it is unique to Calicut, that's for sure. And another thing about this walking street is that pedestrian-only street is you get a chance to still see the diversity of Calicut. So you have a Parsi Anjuman area, you have areas where you have Sindhi shop owners, Gujaratis. So that diversity of Calicut's communities is visible in that neighborhood. And if you walk a little further from there towards the beach side, there's the completely Gujarati neighborhood of people who migrated long back, and you'll see a Jain temple. You'll see houses that are a fusion of Kerala and Gujarati architecture. The community constructed a very large school there as well. So the point is, Calicut has always been cosmopolitan. It's always been a city that has welcomed people. And it's a place where you don't have to be a Malayali to come and enjoy it. You're more than welcome, and it's a place when I spoke to people who came from other places, and they said that when people asked them where they were from and they mentioned it, everybody seemed excited, and so that's something that that openness, that welcoming nature of the Malabar region. You see that there.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's really good to know. And I really hope I get a chance to visit the northern part of Kerala sometime soon too. One other thing I remembered from while I was looking up, like for the episode, something very unique. Also, maybe to Kerala or maybe to this part of Kerala is also on the beach side. There's a lot of these stalls, especially food stalls. Yeah, Ajay, and mussels. I think that's what you call the type of fish, the seafood. Pretty much like fried mussels was something that was very like a popular dish or offering, you could say, in a lot of those stalls too. Again, not something that I've come across in some of the other beach towns and beaches that I've visited. So worth noting and worth trying if you're somebody who enjoys seafood. So something very unique that Calicut has to offer. Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know if you had a chance to try that.
Well, there's a lot of goodies that you can get by the seashore. In fact, what I would also recommend for people who are interested in history and in seafood is to go to a place called Bepur, which is very much, just outside Calicut. And there you see these large ships bringing fresh catch. And there's, one area where you can just get on a ferry and cross the Chaliar River. And it's really beautiful because it gives you a glimpse of, again, another world. And one thing about particularly Calicut and other parts of the Malabar and all the way down to southern Kerala, the rivers just flow freely. And it's nice to see that. The estuaries, you just see how, unlike many other parts of India, by April, May, you hardly see water in the rivers and stuff. In Kerala, it's very blessed with rains. So that, going and checking out these estuaries is also a very good idea. But yes, coming back to food by the beaches and by the seashore, yeah, there are plenty of goodies that you can get. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and especially, again, the place you called out, right, Bepur,
Right.
that is also, I believe that's the home of the writer Vaikom Bashir, right?
That's
Bepur
right.
Sultan.
That's right.
Yeah, I believe he's popularly known as Bepur Sultan.
Yeah.
There, and there's also a museum dedicated to him. And I also found it very interesting that Bepur has this almost like an industry, you could say, of building ships.
Yes, shipbuilding, and it's
Yeah.
worth going in. And these ships they're absolute beauties. They look, some of them look like they're out of an old Nicholas Roerich painting.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed my walk in that area, and I spent time there, and that was a really nice experience. And also, if you take that ferry, you cross over, and there are some places that have some old historical infrastructure that's still functioning. There's a place called Farokh, and it's sometimes pronounced as Ferok, and there's a railway bridge and a road bridge, which is the road bridge resembles the Howrah Bridge on a much smaller scale, and the Ferok railway station is also really very cute. That's the right word. So, and in that area, there's the Commonwealth factory where these Mangalore tiles are made and bricks, and so. Like I said, the more you just travel around that area, the more little hidden gems you find, which is why a longer term trip would be ideal. But then there are people whose interest may be just to find these kind of historical places, and they can focus their few days on just seeking these things out as well. Another thing is now doing day trips. Calicut's also an ideal place to do that. So I mentioned Ponnani earlier. And I visited this town, which is famous for both its mosques and temples. At one point, it was called the Mecca of South Asia or something like that, or of India, because there are a lot of great religious schools there. But I went inside the Valia, means big Jama Masjid of Ponnani. But I think Ponnani as a town itself deserves an episode sometime in the future, simply because it's a place that has mangroves, it has backwaters, it has this free-flowing Bharatapura, this Indian river, and absolutely beautiful beach with a lighthouse. So Calicut is a great place to do these kind of day trips. You can also go to a place called, Kannur, of course, is famous in its own right, and it's close enough to do a day trip. But one nice experience I had was I went for a wedding in a place called Talasheri, which is famous because apparently the first cricket match in India was played there, and also the first Christmas cake in India was baked there. It's a city of high culture, and I was lucky to go for a wedding there. A Calicut friend invited me. I said, I don't know the bride or the groom. He said, it doesn't matter. And when I went, he introduced me to his friend whose son was getting married, and he said, you're a part of our family, welcome. So I was really touched with this kind of hospitality. And so when you travel to Talasheri, you cross a slice of what is officially part of Pondicherry called Mahe, the little part of Pondicherry that is within Kerala. And it's very interesting because the minute you enter that territory, you'll see beautiful wine shops on both sides of the road. So Keralites come there to get cheap alcohol because in Kerala, alcohol sales are restricted to government-owned places. And when you get into Mahe, it's cheap, and you see this in both corners, and it's actually funny because you're not allowed to take the alcohol out of that territory into Kerala, but people still smuggle it out, and these shops are open, and it's really you feel like laughing when you just cross Mahe because it's really unfortunately turned into a place where people just go to stock up on alcohol.
Yeah.
But visiting Talasheri, again, I noticed a lot of, the nature there is really beautiful. And one nice experience I had was to visit an old tarwad, which is a Malayali word for, like an ancestral house. And I ended up meeting a 96-year-old freedom fighter. She is, God bless her, in good health, and speaks with real, like the Queen's pronunciation. Her English is so perfect. And she told me in her British accent that in 1942, she kept shouting, go home Britishers, go home Britishers. And this lady, she's very popular in Kerala. It's known as Mariamma. And she was one of the first Muslim girls to go to a convent school. So she, learned English a long time back, and she was a social worker and somebody who's, the matriarch of that house and that family, which is very big. They took me inside the house. They showed me the interiors, and it was a trip back. The house is, I think, 103 years old, and it's listed in the Kerala tourism website and stuff. So it was a nice experience. I plan to write about this remarkable woman sometime in the future, but it was a great experience just to go there, to be in that house, and to also just to experience the hospitality of Talasheri as well. And this was a day trip for me. We left at 8 a.m. We spent the day. We spent some time there. We attended the wedding and then came back the same evening. So Calicut's a great base to see many small towns and just to explore the nature of the Malabar region.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, really, I really envy the kind of diverse experiences you've had through your stay as well, right? Be it these day trips or just the different kinds of places you've visited too.
Right. And I think when a town is relatively small and not used to so many visitors, the people tend to be a little more excited, and they're so open to it. So another experience I had in Calicut was I met the only surviving Parsi family. So Calicut had at one time community of 300 Parsis. So they took me into their prayer hall, and this is not a fire temple, but just a prayer hall where non-Parsis are allowed, and showed me some of their properties. And I met the patriarch of the Parsi community, Mr. Darius Marshall, and he reminded me so much of Sam Manekshaw. Same sense of humor, and it was a great experience going and having a cup of tea with him. And for what Calicut has done to the Parsis, the Sindhis, the Gujaratis, they all speak perfect Malayalam. They want to eat Kerala food, and this Parsi family has dansak and other things on Sundays or once in a while. The same thing with the other communities. They many of them, they say, okay, we're Malayali Parsis, we're Malayali Sindhis, Malayali Gujaratis. And you see this about, I mean, I haven't seen this kind of incredible integration in many other parts of the country. But what I noticed about these communities is they've preserved their language, they've preserved their customs, they're proud of their identity, which is from elsewhere. But at the same time, these are lessons for the rest of our country. You go and live in another part of India, learn another language out of love, integrate into that community. People will embrace you in such a way. And if we could replicate this across India, we wouldn't even be having 1/10 of the social problems we face in 2022.
Sure. I think that's quite a deep message too. It's true that while the communities that have actually made Calicut and Kerala home have assimilated well within the communities there, but at the same time, they've also maintained their rich culture and their rich heritage, right? That's the important bit, and how everybody's peacefully coexisting, I think is the message to take away for the rest of us. Thanks so much for sharing all of these beautiful experiences, Ajay. Just a couple quick shout outs from my side. I know for the lovers of biryani, the Calicut biryani is very, very popular, and I read that Paragon and Rahmat Hotel are two very popular spots.
Paragon, oh my God, the biryani there is out of this world. I immensely enjoyed eating that. There's also famous biryani in Talsheri. There's Wayanad biryani. So
yeah.
You have, and they taste different from the Hyderabadi and Lucknowi biryani. So they're really nice. But honestly, I would suggest if you can make local friends in Calicut, nothing like an auntie's kitchen. Trust me on this.
Okay.
So because I had a few biryanis that were made by my local friends' parents, my mom's, and they are absolutely when it comes to taste and flavors on another level. But yes, when you're in Calicut, go to Paragon again. Like Amma's Hotel, you have to wait.
Yeah.
There's a long queue because people know where the food is good.
Yeah. So I thought I'd quickly call those out. Yeah, very, very mainstream, very busy places. But like Ajay mentioned, it's also very different from the kinds of biryanis you might get in other places like, say, the Lucknowi or the Hyderabadi or even the Bangalore biryani or the Calcutta biryani. Yeah,
those are all delicious too. I enjoy eating all of them. But here you have a chance to try this when you're in Kozhikode. And of course, the rice that's used in all these preparations is different in different parts. And, it's an indication of many other things. But yeah, we need somebody to write a biryani book, a good food writer. That's not up my alley. So let's find someone to do that.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of things to offer. And like we've been touching upon the whole conversation, it could be like easily a 2-3 day trip to anything like a month that Ajay spent there, and you'll never run out of things to do. But thanks so much, Ajay, for so beautifully capturing this really vibe of Kerala, I would say, vibe of Calicut. Very laid back, down to earth. Still God's own country. So you have all of those good parts from nature. And but before we forget, even the backwaters of Calicut are very, very popular. So that's another reason, or for some of you, that might be one reason to visit. But there's just like never-ending list of reasons and opportunities Calicut has to offer for the traveler who's looking for different kinds of experiences. But how do listeners keep in touch with your work and follow you on your trips?
Okay, so one is I am a blue tickwala on Twitter. So following me on Twitter would be one good way of doing that. I have an Instagram account, which it's a closed profile, but then I just need to know who the person is who wants to follow me, and I don't turn down requests. And of course, I have a Substack newsletter where I give about 1 or 2 free articles a month. And you can check out my work on Manorama. And if you like history, I've been writing for over since June of 2021 with Scroll. There's 3 articles a month about India's connections with the rest of the world. It's under a fellowship from the Kalpalata Foundation. So I intend to continue writing about the interface of history, geography, and how it impacts culture. So I'd be happy to connect with readers through any of these platforms.
Wonderful. We'll definitely make sure to include all of these in the show notes section of the episode so listeners can check it out and follow Ajay. And Ajay, personally as well, I'd like to thank you again. It's been an honor to host you after 3 years, and this time talking about a destination within India, right? Last time, like I said, we spoke about the Sakhalin Islands and your experiences writing the book. But we certainly, especially given the kind of work that you're doing now, I certainly look forward to hosting you back again very soon and exploring another part of Kerala perhaps, or another part of India even. But thanks so much. It was such an honor to have you back.
It was my pleasure, and the honor is entirely mine.
Thank you, Ajay. That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey. Hello, everybody. It's been another awesome, great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Think Fast, Varun and Sujita talk about India's new unicorn, PhysicsWala, and their humble business venture. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archit discover some interesting trivia about oil with Hindustan Times columnist Shweta Sivakumar. On Misconduct, Ragvi and Nisha tell us about sex trafficker Sonu Punjaban. On Big Talk About Tiny Humans, Devi Shobha and Meghna share tips for sleep training babies. And on Ikka Dukka Economy, renowned economist Arun Kumar tells Abhinav about the impact of black money on individual finances. We got some exciting news for you. IVM Podcast has just launched its merch line and you should check it out now. Head over to the IVM Podcast website, that's ivmpodcast.com, and click on the shop tab to check out our first collection of t-shirts. Also, do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. That really does help. Don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And also do remember, you can check out a number of our shows on YouTube. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/YouTube to get a list of the channels that we are keeping active. We also are doing a small listener survey. If you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey to fill this out, it'll just take a few minutes and it really helps us out. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance, Apne Liye, Apno Ke Liye. Jupiter, a digital banking app. Capgemini, get the future you want. Intel vPro, built for business. And Intel, future but now wonderful with Intel-powered laptops.